All right, hello and welcome to Political Voice. I am Moses Humphrey. Now we're heading to the conversation, but before we do so, let's look around. Let's look at what's been happening around the world. All right, let's look at the politics that's been played out in some parts of the world. All right. Now we will head from Israel. First, from Israel, where Prime Minister Netanyahu, Bibi Netanyahu's office, moments ago denied reports that it has agreed to halt fire in southern Gaza to allow humanitarian aid to enter through the Rafah crossing. Now, a brief statement from Netanyahu's office, cited by the Times of Israel, stated, and I quote, "At the moment, there is no ceasefire for humanitarian aid in the Gaza Strip and the exit of foreigners." End of quote. In Eastern Europe, Polish opposition leader Donald Tusk declared the beginning of a new era for his country after opposition parties appeared to have won enough votes in the country's election to oust the governing Nationalist Conservative Party. The country now faces a period of political uncertainty after Poles voted in their huge numbers in an election, voting in even greater numbers than when the nation ousted the communist authorities in 1989, in which opposition parties appeared to gain a combined majority. But the ruling right-wing Law and Justice Party won more votes than any single party and said it would try to keep governing. Oh well. The final results have not been reported by the State Electoral Commission, but they are expected early on Tuesday, which is tomorrow precisely. In West Africa now, bringing it home, Liberia's President George Weah and opposition leader Joseph Boakai are nearly tied in the race for the presidency following an October 10 election. Provisional results published by the West African nation's Election Commission showed on Sunday. Now, Weah holds a slim lead at 43.80% of the vote, while Boakai has 43.54%, according to tallied results from 72.92% of polling places, the commission said. Now, to avoid a runoff, the winner must secure more than 50% of votes cast. And now to the main issue for today. First, President Tinubu has asked the Supreme Court to throw out the forgery evidence tendered by his rival Atiku Abubakar on the grounds that the deposition of Caleb Westberg, Registrar of the Chicago State University, CSU, was conducted by U.S. attorneys rather than certified judicial officers. Now, Tinubu, on October 12, Friday, filed a counter-affidavit to defend himself from Abubakar's petition seeking an annulment of his election victory. Now, at the top court, in it, he implied the content of the deposition could not be trusted. The content, I beg your pardon, of the deposition could not be trusted. Tinubu further tainted the deposition by implying that it was not held in a neutral setting because Dechert LLP, the legal firm representing Atiku Abubakar, selected their West Waka office as the venue. Now, it wasn't clear, though, whether Tinubu's legal team, Charles Carmichael and Oluwole Afolabi, objected to the venue prior to the October 3 deposition, or if they consented to go to Mr. Abubakar's preferred location. Well, however, Tinubu seems ready to exploit the West Waka location as a legal loophole to prevent the Supreme Court from admitting the deposition as proof of his forgery. Now, as the legal showdown for Nigeria's presidency draws near, Tinubu has unsheathed his own sword, leveling serious allegations of identity fraud and forgery against his main opponent in the February election. He has challenged Mr. Abubakar, Alhaji Abubakar Atiku, to explain why he bore Atiku Kojoli on his primary school certificate and Siddiq Abubakar on his 1965 West African Senior School certificate. So it's a, back and forth of allegations, accusations, and counter-allegations and accusations. Oh well, that's that. that's what's going on right now. I have with me Moses Orishejolomi Adebayo in the studio. Good morning to you.
Well, good morning, Moses. And on a day when I have to remember my late mom, emotions running within. She was so good then, but life moves on. Nigeria.
Sorry for your loss.
Nigeria. Oh, thank you. Even if that didn't come from you. Really.
Oh, is that why you're on black? You have the touch of black.
Well, I'm going for a dinner around 2 p.m. Read my lips.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right then. So here we are now. The president is asking the Supreme Court to disregard the Carl Westberg's deposition on certain grounds. One being that it was conducted by U.S. Attorneys and not judicial officers.
Look.
That's on one ground. We'll talk about the other one later.
If there's ever a time to be alive, it's always shortly before, during and after elections in Nigeria. We've heightened the position to a level, to a position where we imagine why this cutthroat do or die posture. You are in office, you want to possibly cling to power. You are not in office, you want to ensure that person within the office, occupying the office, must get out by all means. Hence the gavel, as in what comes from the court, as taking over what comes from the ballot, and it's unhealthy really. It's their way. Accusations and counter-accusations. Allegations, some will counter. This is a game of brinksmanship, whereby you always want to be a step ahead of whoever is after you. Tinubu will do what he's doing because he feels he has no right, or Atiku had no right in the first place. Because you remember when Atiku filed the report, he wanted to get to know a few things about his academic status in CSU, Chicago State University. Tinubu tried to block this. And he has...
Where he stated irreparable damage
to his person and what have you.
I've been trying to understand that. From everything that we have seen play out, which of them would you say could possibly have caused irreparable damage to his person?
It was his opinion. I think if there had been a verdict concerning what he opined, possibly we would know how damaging it was. But he only anticipated that it would be a form of damage. It was just a game of, they were playing cat and mouse game. I was going to Obama's issue. Obama had this when he was also America's president. He was born in Hawaii, later became a senator from Illinois, Chicago, before he ascended the number one position in the land as the president. But it was a case of Obama, were you truly born in America? Because if he wasn't born in America, he wouldn't have become America's president. That's the only role you don't play. If you're born out of America, as VP, you can be born anywhere. But if you are not America, if you are going to be America's president, you must have been given within the American space. But Obama kept playing with them. At the point he issued his what they call now, his photocopy birth certificate. They insisted that they wanted to see the original. He played with them. Tinubu possibly is doing this as well. How that, okay, I won't make it easy for you. I know I have a friend who had something similar, but of course on a very smaller scale. He had to release a few things at the point when the courts compelled him to. But initially he told them that, you didn't send me to school, so I'm not duty bound to give you my credentials. Possibly my parents, my uncles, those that put resources together to make me who I am today, can easily ask. This is an FOI bill, so I'm not duty bound. But the court ruled, it was a magistrate court somewhere in Surulere. But today, the issue, the hurdle of releasing the certificates, the transcript and everything to Atiku was granted. Tinubu now, as I've said, wants to still go a step ahead. They both know that it lies in the verdict that comes from the Supreme Court. That's the final habitat. So whatever they do now is just to curry favor, curry sympathy, curry emotions from people, and it doesn't go beyond that. I remember clearly going to 2 weeks now, a fortnight, the Supreme Court Chief Justice of Nigeria made it clear that we consider fact on the merit. We look at fact with evidence, strong one, incontrovertible facts, not by petty or petulant emotions. So both of them, as I've said, they are just playing cat and mouse game. whoever convinces the judge the most at the Supreme Court, because it's not a trial court anymore. It's just a court of policy. They only want to consider how justice was carried at the tribunal. And once they can establish that it was well done, they give their verdict. If it was otherwise, they also give their verdict.
Okay, now let's look at how the justice was executed at the tribunal. We saw that all judges, 5 of them, it was a unanimous judgment.
True.
Do you think that such unanimous judgment can be overturned?
At the risk of sounding subjudicial, because I take on this with fear and trembling. You know what? Whatever is in court, I have over time told myself as an analyst,
Which is the
I
proper thing to do.
don't want to color their opinion. But this is a court of public opinion now.
But let's look at
So we try with care.
antecedents.
If you go by the antecedent, no, it won't happen. No, it won't. Even the closest that would ever have happened in Nigeria was when Yaradua and Buhari duelled. But eventually it ended as 4-3. The then Supreme Court Justice, was it Onogen then? Or the one that preceded Onogen? He was the tiebreaker. 3 judges ruled in favor of Buhari, 3 ruled in favor of Yaradua. But the 4th one, and he said something. 1, this should never be a precedent. Secondly, they were going to give a political solution. You know how, when it comes to the presidential election, the entire country becomes one constituency. And any foul play can make the country erupt. And we don't want that. So the closest we ever had, okay, if you go further down, you talk of the Awolowo 12 to 3rd after the 1979 election. Justice Kayode Shaw made it clear that my hands are tied. For a judge to have made such a statement, he knew that going through legal crucibles, there was no way they were going to arrive at a verdict. But they had to give a political verdict, just to ensure that there is sanity and there is peace in the land. Some followers are not well informed. They look at what happened in Kano now. When some people felt, okay, was it Kano Kaduna? They had the verdict on Zoom, and they ran with it that, oh, the election has been overturned. So they don't want to.
It took some
and what is at stake
explaining.
here is far higher. This is a presidential election. So over time, you consider Awolowo's case, you consider Buhari's case, most likely, even Obasanjo had some teeth there too. At a point, even his victory in Ogun State was nullified. So Buhari, who was the opponent then, wanted to cash in against the incumbent president, Obasanjo, but it was not sufficient enough to have affected the result from Inec according to Supreme Court. Hence, they gave the ruling in favor of Obasanjo. So if you consider those precedents, most likely it may not go that way. But stranger things happen. It's always a case of sometime just something will come out of the blues. Take O.J. Simpson case, for example. Every evidence pointed to the fact that O.J. Simpson actually murdered the wife and the lover. Eventually, he came out unscathed. So just about anything can happen. But we want justice to be done and sin to be done. Our electoral jurisprudence gets richer by the day by virtue of litigations like this. Let them go to court, and they're in court because we are not a banana republic where we sort to jungle justice. Let the judges take their time, go through the verdict of the tribunal, which gave their decisions in a unanimous decision. Let them go through it, sift through it, and at the end of the day, they'll come out with a verdict. December the 6th is just not too far away.
All right. Now, while we wait, you did cite the issue of O.J. Simpson.
Simpson, yeah.
That was a public prosecution.
True.
The whole world basically followed the process.
Which was lawful, yeah.
Now, for the benefit of Nigerians, especially the social media space where judgments have been going on already, people have freely shared their opinion on this issue. Do you think it would calm the nerves of Nigerians if Nigerians were made to follow the process at the Supreme Court by way of local television stations carrying it live, or social media, YouTube or the likes, carrying it live, so people can understand the argument being put forward and appreciate the judgment at the end of the day, whichever way whichever place it swung.
Look at me and tell me that the 12-hour verdict delivered by the tribunal on the 6th of September, you didn't get bored at the point. It was straight 12 hours unbroken. I imagine if all that preceded that judgment day had been broadcast. One, it's always a field where so many times will be misunderstood by Nigerians. So I think they spared us, they spared our bluffs by not even showing something. Look, the court is not the court now is not one jester thing. You don't trifle with it. It's not by mistake we have this magazine as grave as a judge. As a judge, you are not even to be seen. Your word should precede. You should go ahead of you. If they make it broadcast, live broadcast of what will ever transpire, tendencies are for us to make a circus out of this, and that would defeat the very purpose of what. Because already you said out that on social media, which was not around during Awolow's time, was barely around during Buhari Yaradua case. Today we know what goes on there, and any form of judgment that does not favor, that does not suit your own whims, you know how we react. So spare us of all this. Right now, emotions are raw. You go out there, it's still brick brat. It's my candidate that won, is this that won, he didn't win, he had the certificate, and look, we can be spared of all this. Because even if they broadcast them, as I've said, you hardly will understand some of their jargons, their terms. So let the media that should be concerned go out there, be the middlemen, get to hear from courts and break them down so that the man on the street will understand what has been transpired in the courts. Otherwise, if he has to consider, if he has to watch it all by himself, he may not understand a bit anything about what they're saying. I know, of course, doctors and pharmacists, they work in hand so that when a doctor prescribes, it's only a pharmacist that understands what the doctor has written, not even you, the patient in question. So also, if this is thrown to the public, they'll make a circus of it and it will become even messier.
So it shouldn't be.
No.
Okay. Now, there was a school of thought that was of the opinion that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar proceeding with the Chicago State University pursuit of evidence that the president may have attended or may not have attended was washing the country's dirty linen in public. Do you buy that?
I don't buy into that. I don't buy into that. Atiku has every media rights.
If at all the country's dirty linen was washed in public, which of the two did it?
Look, I have always posited that these are just mere conjectures. It doesn't matter. Atiku has every right to pursue this to the very end. When the court of the Supreme Court now finally gives their judgment, their verdict, then we know that it's over. At least it can't be appealed any further. So he has every right. Whoever is being tarnished, I've never been a supporter. I've never been a student of the school that will tell you the optics of Nigerians right now is not good. I think they are exaggerated. I've had reasons since the elections in February, in March, to transact business with people abroad. They are still sane and they are still minding their business there. So I guess some things are just taken way too far. If Atiku went to court because he feels aggrieved, he has every right. If Tinubu feels that the Supreme Court should consider his views, they've got their right. But ultimately, let the Supreme Court just ensure that justice is done. And some supporters of both sides have argued that these are men who have been in the public service for a long time. They've attained different levels of position in society, in government, and they've presented some things over time, their certificates, their exam qualification, and what have you. How come it is this time? I think it's about time we did this. The legislature is now concerned. We ensure that all these litigations should be dealt with before anybody is sworn in. Because this has now shown that there must be a thorough work of reform done by them. Nobody gets sworn in, whether at the Guba level or president level, if you've not cleared all the mess. Because look at Kenya. When Uhuru Kenyatta won a second term for Iran, there were some infractions. And the Supreme Court judge made it clear there that this election is null and void. So they had to go for a rerun. If we do that in Nigeria, at least Kenyatta was not sworn in. So he spared many Kenyans of trouble. We can be spared of all this headache if we ensure that before anyone is sworn in to occupy the position officially, let all of this be sorted out. Otherwise, we'll keep going round and round in circles. And when are we going to grow?
So are you saying that you're of the opinion that when a president is sworn in and the process is being contested in court, it makes it tougher to oust the president that has been sworn in already?
It's like you're begging the question. When a man occupies the office,
so they have influence then.
Let me go back to the Nigerian modern
the judiciary
day.
then can be influenced.
No, I'm not saying that. But let me go back to the Nigerian version of Machiavelli. Then I'm talking of Alphonse Zeribe. Zeribe said something that when some of his boys went to Ireland, they approached him. He told them in black and white, you get to office first. Do whatever it takes. Get to office first. When you get there, we know how to deal with the rest. So if it takes you going there by hook or by crook, whatever, just get in there. And he knew very well that once you have the power of incumbency, it will almost be impossible. It will almost be impossible to unseat you, although over time, some people have been unseated. So many governors.
So basically, at the presidential level, the power of incumbency can influence the judicial process.
I did not say that. It should not influence. Let the judges go by the merit of the cases as presented by the tribunal. They are not going to, from their own job role is not to start looking at facts, or they are only going to consider how compliant was the lower court with the trial facts presented before them. Did they really make them work to them? Did they harness everything to come for judging they arrived at? If that is found wanting, that's when they give their own verdict. Otherwise, they will uphold what the tribunal gave as verdict.
All right. Now, let's also look at the loopholes now being pointed out. The PEPC, the judgment from the PEPC was majorly hinged on a lot of loopholes. And now we see loopholes again being, picked out here, where the deposition was held. Do you think the lawyers to the president, we don't know if they had opposition to where the deposition should have been held, but if they did not and the deposition was held, can that be used as a yardstick to determine whether to disregard the deposition or not?
Look, ultimately, when you consider a statement like the president just issued through his spokespeople, you can easily tell that they are only trying to whip up sentiments. It's that simple. The cases will be judged by virtue of fact, incontrovertible facts. If they have all it takes to get a favorable judgment, so be it. Otherwise, they have only spoken. Talk is cheap. That they went to some attorneys and not judicial officers. Those are just semantics, nomenclatures, synonyms. They don't matter now. They don't matter now. But as I've said, they don't. No, they don't. The only gray area left now is the admissibility of the fresh evidences as Article has. I've heard some legal minds, use sometimes how that on certain occasions, provided the conditions are met, they may admit it, provided it was presented maybe at the lower court, but it was ignored. Say in the case of Opus Odima, of Imo State. When he approached the court, he was number 4, according to Inec's result sheet then. When he went to court, he presented to the Supreme Court now what seemed as though were fresh evidences, but they were not. But they were actually evidence that were ignored by the High Court and the, because for a governor, they go through 3 steps, from the High Court, then to the Appeal Court, then to the Supreme Court. So they admitted those because actually he presented them right from the beginning of the case. So they felt this is not a new thing because the opponents were arguing that it's a fresh evidence, it should not be admitted. But he proved to them that it was given at the lower court. They just didn't consider them. If Article maybe possibly presented all this at the Appeal Court, whether overtly or covertly, then maybe has a case. Otherwise, it is well stated in our laws.
But we also do know, it's also stated in the laws that the Supreme Court has the liberty. They can admit evidence that was not presented at the appellate court at their discretion. At their discretion,
which is tied to the fact that it was not properly scrutinized, properly considered at the lower courts. Because there are nuances, shades of interpretation to this particular issue. Some lawyers will tell you it's not even possible. Some will say, under certain circumstances, it could be admitted. It could be admissible. So it is still for Article and his team to properly convince them. As I've said, my understanding is that if this case had been possibly at the PEPC now, if it was ignored, then he has a better chance to get it listened to by the Supreme Court. Otherwise, if it is entirely new, well, my opinion is that it may not be considered. It may not be considered. If it proves to be entirely new, as in novel, fresh, it may not be considered.
Okay. Now, whether or not it is considered, whether or not the judgment is given in favor of the incumbent, we still have perception. Perception majorly here is the Nigerian people.
True.
Nigerian people within the social media space. All right. We cannot rule out entirely the effect that will have on the Nigerian people. If this is done in such a way that, what do you think, how important is this judgment to the perception of Nigerians, especially young people? We talked about Miss Omar the other day.
True.
And the brazenness with which she forged and tried to defend the result up until evidence came out that, look, she forged it. How do you think this will affect the young person going forward, whether or not the president remains as president of Nigeria?
I understand what you're saying. This is a classic case of legality versus morality on the one hand, then perception versus reality on the other hand. Sometimes our whims, our caprices, they come together, they aggregate, and we form opinions, thinking they should see it that way. But the law is rigid. Rigid in the sense that it does not have any room for anything beyond logic. That's why they say in law, you don't build something on nothing. In our imagination, you look at Hollywood, consider Nollywood, you can as well imagine someone walking through the wall. But in reality, can that person walk through the wall? No. So when our sentiments all aggregate, we feel it should go this way. Look, it's about time we learned that our institution should be trusted. I've said this again and again. The hood should not make the monk. Article Obi especially, this man was phenomenal. He rose, he has written a unique chapter in Nigeria's election history. Take it or leave it. Article said, I've told myself that if I ever find myself in politics, I'll go learn in the school Article possibly established. For one reason, how it's been relevant since 1992. This is some 31 years ago. Is ever relevant. How does it get it done? But what I'm saying is that if Atiku never becomes Nigeria's president, does that by any means diminish his impact on society or his legacy? I don't think so.
Are you sure you want to learn from his school, seeing that he has contested, several times?
The only thing I will not learn is why he keeps losing at the final stage. I will not learn that one. But how he still gets to be relevant all the time, I want to learn that. But that final step, I will sidestep it. What I'm saying is that when I consider men like Benjamin Franklin, he dons the America's $100 bill. He was never America's president. But today, the impact of Benjamin Franklin on American society still is felt even as we speak. When you mention George Washington, who is considered their father, their founding father, Thomas Jefferson, one of their best head ever, who was their third president, John Quincy Adams. All of these, when you mention them, you can as well mention Benjamin Franklin in the same breath because he had the same impact as they had. They held offices. He never held an office. But today, it's still very relevant. For someone to don the currency of the country, that's immortality. So Article Obi still has age on the side. Maybe Article hasn't got age. But let them know that their impact on Nigerian society, our election stories, when they are open, they will be ever relevant. For me, let the Supreme Court have the final say. I fear that if we walk too much around this circle, we may become subjudicial and it affects. Don't forget that I have said this again and again. Right now, the judiciary seems endangered. Why is that some judges now want to give their verdict via Zoom? They fear for their lives. The other day, before the PEPC verdict, it was a case of a particular church. I saw it and I shook my head that this is some Christian like this is unbecoming of Christians. They took their photographs to church praying against them. Have we gotten that low? It's a do or die thing. If I never rule Nigeria, that doesn't diminish my by any means. Some people have ruled their countries and they left their names in tatters. Their memories have been shattered forever. Because someone like Robert Mugabe started very well, but how did he end? Oh, in the 80s, Museveni of Uganda was being touted was the bride of everyone in the world. Today, you don't want to even touch Museveni because he has destroyed virtually all he built. So sometimes you're getting to a particular place may even make you lose relevance. Why did Mandela? Mandela was so wise that he knew that he had made the name. Even if he never became South Africa's president, he would still be somehow relevant there. And after just one term, he knew that if I go for that, I possibly may damage some of my legacies. And he left office. So it's about time they understood this and move on their lives.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Moses Adebayo, for your views there. We'll take a break. Well, we just go to the next part of the show, actually. In our second topic for this morning, Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Inec, Mahmood Yakubu, has said the results of the upcoming governorship election in Bayelsa, Imo, and Kogi states will be uploaded on the agency's result viewing portal, Irev. Yakubu said this while supervising the INEC's mock accreditation exercise in Kogi State on Saturday. And according to him, the commission would adhere to the procedure as provided by law and make results available to the public in real time during the gubernatorial election. But the INEC chairman added that the process was also tested during the mock exercise, which was held across the 3 states. Yakubu said, the method is as provided by law. Electronic accreditation, electronic upload of results on the IREF portal, and that is why we are doing this mock exercise. Now, we do know that the off-season governorship elections are billed to be held in Bayelsa, Imo, and Kogi State on November 11. The commission said about 5,009,438 Nigerians are expected to vote during the polls across the 3 states. That's Bayelsa, Kogi, and Imo. Results to be uploaded as stated by law.
Hamlet, Shakespeare, to be or not to be. Look, when I heard this, I had emotions from love to trepidation to possible hatred to damnation. All manners of emotion ran through me.
Why hatred? Out of all the emotions?
Well, as I said, that was not the only emotion around across.
That's the one I'm
Many mixed emotion. I became a rainbow, as a rainbow of emotion. Cacophony of noise within me. Hey, this man.
Why so?
Because, do you think anybody believes Mahmood? Do you think so? Well, for those...
Oh, but should we doubt him? I mean, we know that governorship elections in some states were uploaded.
For real. If you go by INEC's... oh, yes.
We had
and sometime that one that got wrong may as well just color every other thing. When you consider the fact that INEC, over time, when they conduct off-cycle elections like this, staggered elections like this, they've come out fairly well. Anambra is a good example. Osun, Ekiti, and the like. Kogi, Imo, Bayelsa. Suddenly, INEC is on trial again. What they did in February divided opinions. To those that emerged victorious, they believe INEC did a good job. As I've said, I've tried to maintain neutrality over the years because the Nigerian politician or political party, I can't pick my team with them. Never. I'm too politically savvy to go with one party blindly. These are parties that you work all your... I was once a character member of one of the parties when they were in power.
Which one?
I won't mention that for safety.
When they were in power,
maybe they are still in power because, Nigeria is just a case of changing your garb. And I realized that when you work assiduously for them, you are committed, you are loyal. What do they do at the end of the day? They still backstab you. Some boy, some girl abroad who has not contributed anything at all by way of morals, finances, and it just come because it's the son of the chairman and they upstage you, making you look just useless. Despite the fact that you've contributed enormously, immensely to the cause of the party. So I've learned my lesson in a very bitter way. That's why I cannot pick my team with any political party. Whoever makes sense to me, I go out there to vote. I vote athletically. I vote rainbow-like. I don't vote because it's a party. No. If the person concerned occupies a platform and it makes sense to me, I vote for the person. Look, INEC has got a bit of credibility when it comes to this off-cycle election or elections. Will they maintain this time? I think it's about time Mahmood came out to really, really explain again, if he can buy some trust, if he can renew some trust, what Irev, what Beavers, what they stand for, what they do. Oh, House of Rep, Senate that was conducted on the 25th of February this year, the result could easily be uploaded. But when it got to the presidential, scatter.
Does that give you the impression that INEC is probably overwhelmed conducting the general elections?
If I say that, I possibly be giving them lame excuses because this is not the first time they've conducted elections since 1999.
Yeah, but then they always find a way to make mistakes.
It's a human system. Don't get that wrong. I remember Al Gore, George Bush, 2000. I mean, the most pronounced democracy in the world, the most advanced, the most developed democracy in the world, that still had issues. It was said that Al Gore won the popular vote, but eventually there was a certain Jeb Bush, who was then the governor of Florida, who tilted issues in the way of his brother, his elder brother, George W. Bush. So it's a human system. If sometimes America, even Britain, if they don't get it right, it's just because we are humans. But that should not be a reason why we want to perpetually remain a morass, as in conducting elections that are so controversial. Because each time we conduct elections, how come it's always going to be decided in the courts? Why not the ballot? Just give us the verdict. Oh, this person won, the people have spoken, and we will continue our lives. So INEC don't want to go this litigation way. They don't want to prepare the route that leads to Justice Mensah. The other name eludes me now. I'm talking about the current president of the Court of Appeal. Okay. She made it clear that they are so overwhelmed that some of the petitions that have been coming to the appeal court, they are going to break them down and give them out. Let me just sound colloquial now. Because they are overwhelmed in the courts. Because INEC will not do things so clear. They won't make things so clear for others. If you conduct the elections very well, there's no need to approach the courts. I understand the fact that an average Nigerian sees power as an ultimate ambition, which I see as ludicrous. Power doesn't make you any better. If you have the power, what do you do with it? Many of them get there unprepared. They get to office, and the little reputation they took to the office, they shatter everything. So INEC now, they have, as I've said, a bit of reputation with staggered elections. Will they continue? The only thief Nigerians have right now is the mention of that word Irev.
Now, should Nigerians trust the fact that results will be uploaded when, at the time Nigerians needed it most, results were could not be so. And that is why everyone involved will be cautiously hopeful. Cautiously, as in, it's like someone who has damaged the trust, who has really disappointed when it mattered the most, and now coming, please, can you give me another chance? Some may want to, but some will remain diffident. They will remain indifferent. They will remain skeptical. You've given them rooms for this. You've opened the doors to all these isms, these negative isms, cynicism, skepticism, and what have you. INEC can as well remake their image if they truly will conduct, if not necessarily a perfect election, but an election that will be credible. So again, they are under trial. They can't afford to fail again because, as I've said, what transpired in February 25th, on the 25th of February this year, hasn't given INEC their good name. The opposite of them is not good. But if I will still go to the other side as well, when you consider people that emerge from these elections, these general elections, you begin to wonder that, I'm talking of the House of Rep and Senate, is it not that they did something, they did some good job? Because if governors that control entire states could not win a third by virtue of senatorial district, normally in Nigeria, once you are in power, you are almost guaranteed that you win again and again. But some of them, in fact, about 8 governors that vie for senatorial positions, they lost. So it showed that possibly the people didn't want, and the votes counted. Okay, you don't think it's aligning with the power at the center?
Now, when it comes to center, don't forget that when it comes to...
You don't think that's the reason?
No. When it comes to Nigeria as one constituency, which is the presidential election, then it takes another dimension entirely.
Okay. All right, then. Let's stay with Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa now. We also know that the issue of insecurity has come up. Insecurity in Kogi, insecurity in Imo State. Do you think this will affect the elections adversely?
Good point. A good question, rather. I think, as I said here a few weeks back or a few days back, that if you go by what INEC have done in the past, what they've done in the past, you imagine that I think a level of security should be guaranteed. Safety should be guaranteed. Unlike when we have elections across the nation, when they get overwhelmed. I'm talking of the apparatuses now.
So they get overwhelmed.
Nigerian police,
Okay,
Nigeria security and defense, the customs, that are in charge of borders, immigration, and that. But when it comes to these states, there is a way they've done this over time that you can be sure that I had reasons to monitor Ekiti state election that happened, is almost going to a year or two now. There was no way anyone would have rigged that day. There was no way. Because the men on ground, possibly they wouldn't detect anything spiritual. Things that cannot be seen with other eyes, they would have, because they were well kitted, they were armed to the teeth. So there was no way. So if I go by that, and what happened in Anambra, don't forget, some people threatened that Anambra election was never going to hold. But when Inec, in collaboration with security agencies, when they landed in Anambra, they were asking, who are those that won't allow this election be? And election held, nothing like infraction, security-wise. So maybe I go with those antecedents of INEC, and I think with just 3 states, Kogi is still with less than 10 million, Imo State is up to 10 million, Bayelsa is 95. Bayelsa has just 6 local governments. So they should tackle everything security. They should do it very well. That's what I'm saying. They should.
All right. Now, combined, it's interesting that you mentioned the states and the possible numbers. Unfortunately, census has not been conducted in a while, so we don't know exactly how many we are.
We only speculate, and we go by the UN statistics.
Yes, but then we know this one for sure. Registered voters in all 3 states is put at a little over 5.4 million. Is that a good number?
Now, this has to do with the electorate.
You think people lost interest after the general elections?
Look, I keep saying one thing. It's a human society. There is always a reason. When I listened to Angela Merkel sometime, when she was still in charge of Germany, Chancellor, she made a strong point when it had to do with EU and their floundering, when they were fumbling with some issues. And he was able to convince the European Parliament, somewhere in Brussels, that at some point in our lives, we need to renew trust. And the message she gave that day resonated with so many of them. And EU came back from the brinks. I think we need to renew. Look, where you got other countries? Do you have any other place you want to run to? The 5.4 million people that have been registered, ascertained by INEC, is to me abysmal. And at the end of the day, when we don't go out there to perform our civic duty, we end up criticizing. And it's not good enough. If we go out there to exercise our duty as Nigerians, let's vote. As I've said, over time, staggered elections have shown that when you vote, with security apparatus around, your votes will count. When Osun State became too controversial, eventually, Adeleke, that was declared the winner by INEC, still had his way because he was able to prove his point very well at the Supreme Court. So it was a kind of victory for INEC. Ekiti, not much argument. Anambra, in fact, Soludo won fair and square. So let it be a case of, let us still try to trust. We can't but trust. I know trust has been eroded right now, but we can renew it. We can just bring it back again. Otherwise, we ain't got in our country. But then let us always vote when we have to vote.
All right then. Now, interestingly, that we're talking about this, have you considered? I know you're not a decision maker in this, but then your views would go a long way. Have you considered the fact that there might be indigents of these states that are currently not within the state, but are also interested in who sits at the top, dictating what happens in the state, and the possibility of them being able to vote? Now, let's look at that as we're having staggered elections now, off-cycle elections, and a way to bring Nigerians that are not in Nigeria or in their states to vote. Shouldn't we be thinking about that process at this level at this stage?
Spot on. And that's where the legislature, the lawmakers come in. At least as at the last election, you can't vote, in diaspora. There is no room for foreign votes, unlike in some of the democracies of the world, presidential especially, that we ape. In America, even if you're not in America when elections are on, you can always, through your embassy, your consulate, send down your votes. Until we address that, it's unfortunate that we're still thinking analog in a digital world. Really, I ain't got any business. Look at when the private sector organizes things sometimes. Take the much controversial Big Brother Nigeria. You only have to sit in the comfort of your sitting room and and just click, this is what I want to vote for. And it gets, they bring everything together, they galvanize and everything.
You're entitled to one vote.
Vote, yeah. You can't even vote twice because it will be detected. I think INEC should step up their game. Though they can't do it without an enabling law. So let there be laws that will be crafted or recrafted that will ensure that wherever you find yourself, once you have shown that you are a bona fide citizen or a resident of that state, if you belong to that particular state, then you should have I don't have to go to Bayelsa when I'm in Bayelsa to vote. I can as well stay in Lagos. I live in Lagos. My business interest is here. Don't forget, when it comes to elections, traveling and other logistics become a bit more difficult. So some people don't want to go home, but they are interested in voting. So let INEC stop thinking analog-wise. They should start thinking digital-wise. But they can only do this when they are enabled by our laws. If there is a reform. That's why the electoral reform of 2022, yes, achieved a bit of things, made some things clearer, but it can still be amended. It can still be fine-tuned to ensure that, oh, there's a law that now allows that I can vote wherever I find myself. There can also be the call for private or independent candidacy, all of these things. So let INEC work with the senators, the House of Rep members, even House of Assemblies in our states, federating units, and ensure that they come up with, okay, henceforth, you don't have to be there in person. Once you can vote from the comfort of your room, and it will count.
All right, so now, talking about the 3 states now where we're having off-cycle elections, we also do know that there's been complaints about the REC, the Resident Electoral Commissioner in Kogi State, and I think also in Imo State. Do you think that will be grounds for contesting the results of the elections?
You don't want to go anywhere with politicians. They just rabble. They want to burn down the house when nothing is at stake. They want to just give phantom.
No, but if a party has reasons to believe that a REC is not going to be fair in administering the elections, don't you think if that REC is not removed and another put there, don't you think that's enough grounds to say, look, we are contesting
this result? Do they have enough
of
evidence to show that this REC is potentially biased, as in has it been bought over? As I've said, you don't want to take these political parties too seriously. They just cry wolf when there is none sometimes. Some have had reasons to really ventilate, to really give their position on particular RECs. And we've seen RECs being changed. But the complainants now, they had genuine reasons, good and strong facts, to show that this person is not fit. And INEC, over time, they took action. But until those calling for change of REC, until they can provide the world through INEC now, that this person is partisan, he has interest in a particular party. Otherwise, it's just, as I've said, just showboating. If it doesn't like that in politics, I watch football a lot. They don't need to hit up the polity. They don't. Because these are their ways. They want to already fight ahead of time in the name of being proactive when there is nothing to fight
so
over.
You think that's what it is? Fighting ahead of time?
That's just it. If you have any strong evidence to prove that the REC is going to do the bidding of the political party, is partisan, is interested, is an interested party, then the person will be removed. Otherwise, they don't have to go this way. Look.
But if you want to look at this in line with what transpired in Lagos, there were complaints as to the REC in Lagos, and the REC was...
You mean Segun Agbaje?
Yes, and he was not removed.
Segun Agbaje, those that complained against him, I remember he gave series of press interviews. He released many press releases then. That those that are against, tender your evidence that I am for so and so party. They could not. Moses, you know what? I know you've been voting forever. We have all our shenanigans, all tied to politics. We all have we want to be crybabies. Look, it's not about, that is why when you go to court, it's about the facts that you present. They won't go by your whims. They won't go by your sentiments, by your emotions. They want to see facts. They work with hard facts, what can be seen. You don't go to court and say, oh, I suspect that old woman who has lost all her front teeth is the one killing those babies. What is the fact? Does she have a dagger? Does she have a gun that she used to kill? No, it's like she has some supernatural, what is that? No evidence. So if those that accuse Segun Agbaje then could provide ample evidence that this man is not fit for this job, he would have been removed. As I've said, I know over time, not since 1999, House some recs they were removed because it was felt that these ones have interest in certain parties, and they were removed because those that accused them presented real evidence, real facts. So until that is done, please, we can't afford to play along with their. Anyway, it makes things more interesting because you guys in the media, you always want headlines. You don't want footnotes. So once somebody comes out with certain thing, and unfortunately, the social media of today, sometime with unguarded statements, non-professionals who think that news should be trivialized. They make all manner of things from news. They disinform, misinform, malinform. And that's why we are here today. If you think you are having any teeth against any wreck, present your facts, and there's still time. I think this is October, before November 11. Inec, in their better senses, should do what's right.
All right. November 11 is the date when 3 states in Nigeria will have governors that will administer the states. That's Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo.
Are you going to vote? Are you going home to vote? Because I know that one of your states, you are still one of the states. I won't tell the world now, but are you going home to vote?
Well, thank you very much. It's been nice having you on the show. Well, here is Moses Orisha-Jolomi Adebayo. He's an educationist and also a public affairs commentator. And we do appreciate your thoughts and views on the program.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I am the original. Yeah, Moses. Moses Humphrey. I am Moses Humphrey. Political Voice will come your way again tomorrow. Do have yourselves a beautiful day. Bye for now.
Oh, Lord have mercy.